Hello, hi everyone. I hope that you're well. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Fran, your cousin. I'm just really excited to be back, and I hope that the content I'm going to give you, let me just fix myself up. I just hope that the content I'm going to be giving you is the best that you have bargained for. So if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Welcome back to Daddy's Little Girl. Today we are going to be talking about my experience as a nursery teacher in Qatar. Okay, so if you're interested in this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and keep on watching. Cause I realize I've got myself, that's all I got in the end. That's what I found out, and it ain't no need to cry. Talk about that from now on. I'm gonna be my own best friend, be myself, that's all I got in the end. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about my academic background. So I'm 34 years old, and I started working in Qatar, I think a year or two ago. And I went there because of the situation with the pandemic. So what had happened was, okay, so what happened, let me just get back to it. I finished uni in 2019, so I graduated in 2019 and did my SACE, which is South African Council for Educators, if I'm not mistaken. So after that, I thought, hey, I've always wanted to go to Asia, specifically China. Love it to death. So that's what I wanted to do, and I started applications and demo lessons and teaching plans and did my TEFL certificate and so on. So when I did that, then what happened was I did my TEFL certificate with Eye2Eye Institute. So then what happened was a company picked me up from China called Disney. So this Disney company also sources people that are going to work on the cruise lines and people that are going to work for the company as teachers at their schools. Great. I was super excited. Like I can't even explain it. So at that time, I think I was still, was I? Yeah, I was already here in Johannesburg. So I was already here in Johannesburg because I finished my degree when I had moved to Johannesburg. So I'd go back for exams while I was, interning at another school here nearby. So I go back to Durban for exams and so on. All was great. And then I got the job. So started preparing everything. And then 2 weeks before I was meant to leave for Asia, the pandemic struck. And it had gotten to a height that other people who were already in the country didn't know about. So they were just like, what you mean there's a pandemic, and what you mean that you can't now go? Because what happened was everything froze. The borders were closed. The company unfortunately said to us, you know what, we really would have wanted to onboard you. Everything was paid for. Flights were paid for. It was a time where the schools were paying for your flights, not in reimbursed, paying ahead of time, booking your flights, booking your hotels, everything. And then you'd figure out like either the school would pay for accommodation or you'd have free accommodation provided to by the school. So for my case, I was so excited, and then the pandemic struck and I was devastated. Like I don't think anyone has an idea of the devastation I went through, because Asia, specifically China, had been something I was obsessed with since I was in primary school, and I'm 34 years old this year. So you can imagine how long ago. Like if anyone knows and went to schools that had library centers, media centers, we had facilities where we could go like into research parts of it, and there were books called eyewitness books. I'm not even sure who the eyewitness books were by, but if I can, I'll link it. It's really great for kids. I mean, we have internet now and they can watch stuff on YouTube, but like eyewitness books were just our YouTube, because we went with a friend of mine who also ended up going to Asia, Anele Msweli. She's now a businesswoman in South Africa. We were both obsessed about Asia. She was more so into South Korea, because she had a crush on a little soccer player, Anchuang, from there. And I just was like, you know what, friend, like, let's go to the library, research. And we'd find so many great resources about life in Asia, what they wore, their language, and so forth. So our obsession grew from there. And then, fortunately for her, she got to, because my education, I've always struggled with, I guess, getting to the end goal in life. I don't know what I guess my life story is about patience, because my things in life have always taken longer to achieve than most people. So for whatever reason, that was the case even with my education, because I first started out in property. From property, I did journalism. Didn't like it. I didn't like the way they taught. I was at DUT, and city campus. I didn't like the way it was taught. I was more so actually looking forward to it being more social media, like YouTube style, because I was very obsessed with that as well back in varsity. So after 2010, I just was so disinterested. I never attended the classes. I ended up failing twice. And I was just like, what next? What next? And my mom is a teacher and my eldest sister is a teacher. And they were like, you know what? Why don't you just do teaching? Because with property as well, I had gotten into it because of my dad. He was a property valuator. But that didn't work out because the industry had fallen. The companies were now buying the whole industry out, basically, and they were no longer under the banks. So it wasn't going as well as it was before when I started studying. So he said, drop out. I went to journalism, didn't like journalism. Then my parents were like, get into teaching, which I did. And it's so crazy because I've had a dream of lecturing, but I didn't think like teaching would be the segue. And then I did teaching, and my first semester I got distinctions. I probably went out of there with 5 distinctions, if I'm not mistaken, in my first semester. And mind you, I was studying on my own through UNISA, so you can only imagine. So I managed to do that on my own. I majored in psychology and English. So then I said, you know what? Great. So that was the history of it. Then when it so happened that the pandemic took place, I mean, everything was shut, like for nearly good 2 years. We couldn't move, we couldn't do anything. Then after the second year, my sister was like, you know what, you can't sit at home and just not do anything. My eldest sister, she's in Qatar. And she was like, yeah, you know what, because I was going through other personal things as well. I was really going down a rabbit hole, like, of just self-loathing. And then she was like, you know what, I think you should probably just come to Qatar for a break, just holiday, we'll see where it goes. And then I went, because I'd previously gone to babysit. I don't know what had happened, and then she needed somebody to look after the kids, so I went there for like a month during the time where I was doing my TEFL. So I would have gotten an opportunity to experience Qatar, so I did in some way. And then after that, then I came back and then waited, and then COVID happened, and then blah 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 blah. Then I went to Qatar on like a visitor's visa, like I'm going there to visit and I just need some time away. I've really had it bad. I'm really deep row. It was really not a good place to be mentally. So to anyone out there, I would say really, really take care of your mental health. Like, we hear this all the time and it's become a cliche, but I can tell you that it's so important to take care of your mental well-being. It's the first and most important aspect of taking care of yourself, and then physically too. So anyway, I was in Qatar. I was okay with it. Like, it's different. For me, it was a culture shock because I was raised by very like free people. Like, my parents were hippies, so you can imagine. So for me, it was interesting to see the culture shift of the conservative versus the very free, liberal, if I could use that, liberated vibe of South Africa. If anyone of you have been to South Africa or from South Africa, you know how that is. So yeah, and yeah, I stayed, and then I decided, you know what, like, I think then I must apply for work. So I went away from Qatar, applied for work, and then I landed a job at a nursery, which is a Montessori nursery. Anyone who knows anything about Montessori knows that it is very much learning should be fun type of philosophy, which is my philosophy as well. But the only thing is, I majored in INTERSEN, which is intermediate and secondary education. And here I am finding myself in a nursery setting, which is completely different. Like, anyone who can tell you, like, I've raised kids, I've raised my nephews and nieces, and that is a walk in the park. But when you have to take care of other people's kids that are not related to you, the way you discipline is different, the way you share knowledge is different. We don't come from the same backgrounds religiously, and morally we don't come from the same setting. So kids are sponges, for one, and they are very, they just question everything. They're very curious. So you have to respect the fact that you are in a Muslim country and you're not in a predominantly Dutch Christian, Roman Dutch Christian setup like South Africa is. So the way you do things, how you speak, how you carry yourself, the way you, how can I say, present your lessons is totally different. As much as it's fun oriented and so on, for me, I've always wanted the way I teach to be very much educational. And in most settings in Qatar, it's very fun, play based. And a lot of the parents are like, it's sort of like babysitting, if I can be honest. So if you have worked in this nursery setting in South Africa, maybe it's different. I don't know what the setup is here, but I know from my own niece, who's like 5 years old, that 4 years old going to 5, that their content that they teach is very much education based. So when I compare the students that we had to the students that like my nieces, maybe, she's more up to mark and up to par in terms of the education system. So I don't know if maybe it's the way they run their schools or whatnot, but with us, we're very like ahead, when it comes to our education system. So let me just shift that. I don't want to be hitting on the mic. Anyway, so our education system is different. They run it on the British Montessori system, which is more lax, So anyway, for me, I worked from, I think, Jan, training and everything, until October or so, September, October. So my experience there. So let's go into my experience. Coming into the situation, I did not have any former experience of the nursery setting. Yes, I was exposed to the kids. I did English. I majored in psychology. So I get to understand and be compassionate about the lives of the people and try my best to, respect everyone. But I think the culture part, when you're teaching in the Middle East, is something that you have to go into the school setting knowing that you're coming from a very different background. So it's not like back home. And with nursery, parents are generally very much more sensitive when the kids are younger because they're paranoid. I mean, any parent, we don't know how the kids came to be. Many parents struggle to have kids and so on. And many parents are coming from their home countries as expats into Doha. And maybe some of them have their own reasons for leaving their countries for safety. So, all of those things come to play and we have to respect that. So, I felt like what the school could have done better was train us, onboard us as new teachers, or myself, let me speak for myself, train me and onboard me in a way through with another teacher, and I came into the situation where I was onboarded by my TAs, which already puts me at a disadvantage because my TA expects me to be the leader. So I'm the class leader, but I'm being told what to do and trained by my senior teaching assistant, which just then puts me in a position where, one, my ego is bruised, two, I'm sort of undermined, let's be honest. I had a really rough patch with my senior TA, and her character and mine didn't click at all till the end. And also the fact that we were coming from different backgrounds. They were from another nationality and I was from another nationality. And it's not even a race thing, it's more of a nationality thing, because you're speaking a different language in the classroom that I don't understand. You guys are laughing at jokes. I can't be a part of the conversation. I felt very much excluded all the time from the scenario. My senior TA was very, very, very aggressive, and I'm a very lax, calm person. So I can have my bubbly moments, but I'm a very lax person. So yeah, I appreciate my TAs, and I appreciate all that they both did in onboarding me and training me. I've learned so much, and I feel like now I can go into the nursery school set up feeling much more confident in myself, and feeling like, okay, I've got this and I can lead much better, unlike before where I was being led by my assistant, which is like, roles are very important in the classroom setting, and if those are misconstrued, it makes the working environment awkward, and that's just what it is. So with that being said, I was coming from a different setup where the curriculum was a certain way. It was already expected of you, even with stuff like how the school is run management wise. We have to really talk about the fact that with the schools and with a lot of other people that I've spoken to, not just people that I know personally, but people who have had to quit their jobs working in the Middle East or Qatar specifically, they felt like management wise things weren't run accordingly, because most of the cases, I'm sorry to put race into it, but you have to, people of color tend to feel as though white or Caucasian people or Westerners have an upper hand compared to anyone else because they're from the West. The West is the best, there's that whole mentality. So coming into it, one, I'm black, two, I'm plus size, three, I'm African. There's that whole misconception of the parents won't like you, you're not better than the people who are, Middle Eastern or what. So it's so awkward. It's something that you constantly have to tell yourself it's going to be okay. So I would advise anyone who's going to work in the Middle East, who's going to work in Doha, that they need to know about the cultural differences and also the workplace differences and how things are run differently compared to South Africa. In South Africa, your manager is your principal, and your school principal is educated for the position. Not just the position, but is first and foremost a teacher before somebody who is in management or school management or in a higher position than you. They work their way up. It's not something that it's based on merit. It's not something based on racial merit. So that's one of the things that is, I hope that in the future, the people in the Middle East would change, that they recognize that in order to work within a school system, we have to hire people who are awarded those positions according to merit and not the color of their skin or demographically where they come from. Award people positions of management, of school, whatever, according to their performance. So performance-based merit and not race-based merit. Anyway, moving on. Let's segue. um, so for me, I found it difficult because the way certain things were run, like the curriculum, um, the calendar, the school calendar, the grading system felt tricky for me. The lesson planning felt tricky for me. So in terms of like the calendar, for an example, there's apps that are used where you log in information about the kid, the students, their needs, what they had, when they slept, and so on, which means you have to have knowledge of that when it happens. It's a lot of admin on top of the fact that you're making sure that the kids are safe and well taken care of and educated and entertained. So for me, stuff like certain parts of admin, like sending out notices to parents about certain things that are general things and not class specific, felt very tedious for me. Because if, for an example, in most schools here in South Africa, if we are going to have sports day for the school, for an example, or the grade, maybe it's a trip for grade fives. A letter is sent out to the parents on social media or WhatsApp, or a leaflet is sent out and given to the parents, and that is the duty of the parents to do their part in making sure that that's provided for, or that they remember. It is not my point as a teacher to go back and make sure that the kid's parent knows that there's sports day or a trip on a specific day, because I'm dealing with many other facets of the classroom. It's not like maybe if there's a show and tell where I have to remind I have to remind the parents because it's my class only. You know what I mean? So for me, that felt redundant, that I have to send out a letter or remind the parents on the app. Some parents might not have the app, which now becomes my problem. And then I have to verbally remind my assistants to remind the people that come and fetch the kids. It's a lot, and there's a lot on our plates, and you have to remember all of that, and remember who slept, and remember who ate what, and remember how many times somebody went and changed their nappy or went to the loo. All of that stuff can become daunting, and I don't think even in South Africa parents realize how much foundation phase or ECD, early childhood development centers, or education is actually pivotal, and that the teachers that are the providers actually work so hard, and their assistants work so hard and should be paid much more than they actually do, unlike when you're in senior phase where the child is very much responsible and responsive, and the parents are more lax in terms of knowing that the child will impart that message or relay the message to the parent about whatever is needed for that week, that month, that year, that semester. So for me, I just found it to be very, very, very tricky in that aspect. So my advice would be for anyone that's looking into finding work in the Middle East, I would say, I don't know what's beeping here. I think my phone is overheating. Yeah, I would say before I end this video, I would say make sure you have all the information necessary to actually start applying. They are constantly looking for teachers because teachers constantly quit, because it's a very tedious job that's underpaid, and in most cases you don't get a visa, a work visa. The schools have to really work hard to get you one. So most of the cases, it's people that have come there on their husband's visa, and then they get to be employed. But the workload is a lot. What's needed of you mentally is a lot, and the pay is not enough. So I would like to see in the future where we find places like Asia, where the teachers who are working ECD are getting paid big bucks. So Salary wise, I was going home with 7,000 Qatar reals, which in South African rands is like 24 at that time. So I would say like expect the fact that you're not going to get paid a lot. So it's better for somebody that's actually on their husband's visa. Accommodation is not provided. Which fortunately for me, I was living with my sister and her family, so it was better because I contributed what I could, and then I'd send home the rest and save the rest and enjoy my time. But you're so tired from the week that you don't get time to enjoy your money. So it's mostly something that you do to build your CV, I would say. But just be prepared for whatever comes your way. Just also go into the situation knowing your role and ask for an induction, a proper induction, and read your contract and sign your contract knowing what you're getting yourself into. So yeah, I'd say all the best to anyone looking for employment in Qatar. They're opened to employing people from outside the country. And yeah, just go into the situation knowing that you are in the Middle East and you are not in your home country, and you came into the situation knowing you needed employment. So egos down and head up high, and you are going there to provide for your family back home. All the best. I wish you luck, and I hope to hear your stories, and I hope to hear that you are officially employed. Until next time, ciao, bye.